She was a younger woman, and I went under. I was her higher self. I was talking to her and telling her everything. I was telling her stuff that I knew about her, and she believed it at some point. But then at some point, when I was talking to her, it almost seemed like her demeanor changed, and she's like, "Can you tell me what's in my pocket?" And her higher self was like, "Do you not know what's in your pocket? Why are you asking me what's in your pocket?"
Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw-Goldman again from quantumhealers.com. And I've been looking forward to this show. Today, I'm welcoming Sarah and Travis Webb to the show, and we're going to talk about surrogate sessions. But before we do that, I would like Sarah and Travis to introduce themselves. Hi, guys. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Candace. How are you?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Well, I am Sarah Webb, and I am a BQH practitioner. I live in southern Utah, so near the beautiful Red Rock country and kind of on the border of Arizona and Nevada. So that's where I am, and this is my husband, Travis.
Hi, I'm Travis. I'm the trance channeler. I usually trance channel the angels most of the time. You never know which one comes through, but yeah, I channel mostly the angels, and every now and then I'll channel a regular being every now and then, but it's mostly the angels. So that's what I do with our part of the work. So
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
Travis and Sarah kind of work together as a team. And, there's more than one of them out there where there's the wife and the husband. And you know what? I don't know anyone where the husband is the practitioner and the wife is the channel. It's always, in my experience, the other way around right now. I'm not saying it always should be, or I don't even know why, but that's what it is as far as I can see.
mm.
And I'd sure
I
like
don't
to
know
see
why
it swap
either.
someday.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know
Well,
why either.
I finally
But
learned I finally got hit with the channeling stick, but you know, uh yeah, it did start
well,
out with him, so
yeah.
I don't
How
know.
could you not being in that energy? It just
True. It's true.
it absolutely encourages it. So today's
Yeah.
conversation is because um, Sarah and Travis do some surrogate work, and on our quantumhealers.com support forum, we had a fascinating discussion about the use of surrogate sessions, and we wanted to talk about it right here for you, for the public, so that you can understand a little bit about what they are, why they exist at all, and when to use them. And so I'm going to start with some history. So all the way back in 2008, when I met Dolores Cannon, and in that first class that I took with her, and that she was teaching, of course, everybody else at the time, and she'd been teaching her method since 1998, right? So this is a good 10 years of her teaching. Maybe it was 2002. I think she released it. Well, anyway, back up from there.
Yeah.
Right around the year 2000, she started teaching her method, and this was 2008. And part of the whole class was telling us about this possibility of using a separate person to contact past lives or higher selves or guides or whatever for that person if that person was unable to have a session. Now, what did that mean? Well, in Dolores's world, it was very, very specific. The only person she really wanted to use as a surrogate was either the spouse or the mother of the person who couldn't have a session. Who can't have a session? Well, how about somebody in a coma? How about somebody who has dementia? How about somebody who's ill or, in the hospital and is unable to communicate? And then, of course, there's this whole idea of children, somebody younger. And in Dolores's reference and in her world, she suggested not to do sessions on children younger than about 16 or 18. It was just not done back then. And in classes, and I assisted her all those years. And every single class, there would be people who would ask, there would be practitioners who would ask. And so in her classes, people would ask, but Dolores, why? Why can't we do sessions with teenagers or children? She always answered this question very simply and very very sweetly, actually, and it was, and very protectively. You remember, she was a mother and a grandmother. She had 4 children of her own and numerous grandchildren and great grandchildren. And she said this, because I don't want that child to be made fun of in school. It was the only reason she ever even gave. That was it. Now, in our world today,
that's wild.
It's kind of a different thing, I would say. I just would. People are more accepting of this work. We talk about it easier. We know about children who remember their past lives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Back then, no, that just didn't, that wasn't a thing. It wasn't anything we talked about. We were, I don't want to say naive, but we were beginning. I mean, Dolores, absolutely, she was the trailblazer. And then those of us who came after, we learned from her, and we've been expanding and expanding and expanding, since her death, and some of us past her death. But back then, she only suggested surrogates for that. Now, people would come up with other questions, and they would say, well, why only a family member? Why only the mother? And Dolores would answer, well, the mother has a very strong psychic direct connection with the child. It's just the strongest bond there is, even into adulthood. So she would answer it that way. Obviously, the same kind of thing with the spouse. And people would say, Dolores, can't I just use my friend over here who connects very, very well as a surrogate for someone else? And Dolores was not approving of that at all. At all. She would try to shut down the conversation. Sometimes people would press. Of course, I wanted to know myself, well, if we can do this, why can't we do this? And Dolores actually, in her own way, was very, very wise. She would say, I don't want people to get in their head about this and start thinking that they can do everything and heal everyone. And she, in her own way too, was kind of prophetic. In the early days, there were people who dismissed Dolores in that way and found a partner and would start swapping sessions like that. I've been around watching people pair up and do this. And let me tell you, I would say 9 out of 10, not only are they not doing it anymore, they're no longer friends.
Really?
Yes.
That's surprising.
Really? Oh, it's
Wow.
not when I watched what was going on. Not when I watched what was going on. Dolores knew what she was talking about. The most successful people are like you guys. You're married. I have goosebumps with that. You are partners in another way. You are able to withstand some of this stuff. Okay, but let's set that aside for a second, and let me finish with the history, because I cannot talk about this history without mentioning this. After Dolores was gone for 2 years for my mother and a little bit more than 2 years for my father, I had 2 wonderful, wonderful QHHT practitioners, my good friends, Laura Casto and Joan Murray, who are partners themselves, by the way. They are life partners themselves. Okay. And they had been doing this, even though they knew Dolores didn't approve. They'd been doing this for select people. And at some point when my dad was really struggling, and this was 2014, 2014 was when Dolores died, excuse me. And it was just after that we helped my mom. And then just after that, a little bit where we helped my dad. They offered to do a session for my dad. And if anybody's been watching any of my videos for a while, you probably heard me mention it, because my dad, both my mom and dad were in their 80s. They kind of knew that I did something woo-woo, but they didn't know. They did not understand the mechanics of this. I tried doing a session on my mom years prior. That's a whole nother story. But why couldn't we do a session? Well, he didn't have good hearing. He was just beyond it, right? He was beyond the capacity of being able to even really understand what it was all about and how to do it, and even if he wanted to do it. So they did a session. At the time, both my mother and my father were on 24/7 oxygen. I mean, compressors in the middle of the house. They both were mobile, but they'd like walk across the house like this with their tubing. I mean, it was nuts. I'd go visit, and the tubes are like this, right? Dad with COPD, mom with congestive heart failure. Laura and Joni offered to do a session for my dad, but we agree that I simply go ask Dad, can we do this? And I explained as simply and as basically as we could. And Dad was like, well, sure. They did it. I don't know, the next couple days. The next day, my dad took off his mask. He's never put it back on again. He's 93 right now.
Wow.
Goodness.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. It's been 10 years, you know, or right at 10 years, just under 10 years, maybe. So it was astonishing. I mean, it was like, you know, we waited a little while and pretty soon I had them pick up the compressor and take it away. It was just in the way. We weren't using it. He didn't need it. It was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. So we went on for a little while and basically my mom did a little, I want some of that. I want some of that. Do you think those ladies could heal me? You know, and of course, that's not exactly the way this works, but, you know, because we never say we heal anybody, right? Pardon me. But can they assist her? And, you know, you and I, Sarah and Travis, you too, we've been doing this work a while, and sometimes miraculous, unbelievable, amazing healings happen. And other times we don't know why, not much changes. It's just a fact. You do this, it's not a guarantee. It's just not. We don't know everything. For goodness sake, we're humans. Anyway, after a while, so when mom asked, and I looked at mom and I basically tried to say, well, sure, we can try, mom. And then I had to be positive without saying, but there's no guarantee.
Right.
So it was really, you know, and me as a practitioner, even somebody who's been doing this for a really long time and supporting other practitioners, I'm thinking, could we have 2 miraculous healings in one household? Is that possible? I mean, how many of those do you know? I don't know of very many. And yeah. And so I'm like, but we can try. Sure as day and night comes every day, same thing happened. Same thing happened to my mom. Well, and my understanding, I know more and more about this as time goes on. And some of it has to do with intention. Some of it has to do with our roles in life, trying to make things better for humanity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying I'm special. I'm just saying we put in our dues and we really try to listen and follow our guidance and how this works. And sometimes the alignments shift really well when you've been working on that for a really long time. Wow. And that's the way that worked. So yes, here was 2 people who didn't know my mom and dad from anybody. And not only did they help my dad, they helped my mom. And so it is possible and it does happen. And where we are today and why we're talking to Sarah and Travis is because they've been doing that. But somebody on our forum who will remain nameless, we don't need to go into that story at all, but somebody on our forum who is a really new practitioner did a session for a client. I'm not for sure, but I can't imagine this person had done very many sessions at all, maybe less than 5 or even less than 10. A brand new person on in our community with BQH. And she reports, thank you very much, you know who you are, reports on the session on the forum. And that she does this session. And the session doesn't really go very far. And she basically states at the end, and I'm going to do a surrogate session tomorrow. Or the next day. And most of us on the forum are like, ho, 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 hold on. Yes, right? Hold on a moment. Because she was new, she's excited. She knows that surrogate sessions are powerful, very powerful. I just told some stories about them. And she wanted to try it herself. But one of the best answers on our forum came from Sarah. And that's why we're talking today. Hey, Joanne, Sarah, and Travis, go ahead and just talk about how you got started in it, how you were using it, and then how you came to give the advice that you gave on our forum to that newer practitioner.
Well, back when we were new, we had discovered Travis's gift, right? And we were just mind blown at this ability to channel the angels. We're just like, what is this magical thing that we've got here? And of course, me being a new practitioner and Travis wanting to help people, when people would have their own blocks, which can happen sometimes, um, it was my first instinct to just run to him and say, could you please, help this person? Oh, they just want to talk to their higher self so badly. And after a few times of doing that, and after some responses from people um, at what their higher self said to them, they were not really happy at what they got. They didn't like the answers they got, and basically they wanted it as proof. I think because Travis is so interesting to watch, we get a lot of people who come in and they're like, okay, I want to do something where I'm going to ask, I'm going to ask, we would let them be there for this. We were really not bright in the beginning, but we would let them be there. and and they would say questions like, I hadn't screened them very well. And so they would say things like, so what's my favorite, what's the name of my dog? Or, what's in my pocket? And the angels would just get so irritated. They'd just be like, not they don't get irritated, but they were just like, we don't play that way. We just don't play that way. We're not going to tell you things that you already know. And so people wanted it as a proof thing. And we had talks with them later, and they were kind of like, this is not meant to prove to anyone that what we believe in is real, that there's anything out there. The person has to believe it first, and then they probably would have gotten more information. Some people did, um, but they still didn't get anything. Well, it didn't really help them. How can I say this? Let's see. There's a dear, dear friend of mine who we did do a surrogate session for early on. And she got some answers, just, a few. But then she was having trouble again seeing in her next session. And she wanted to see again if Travis could channel for her. And he did again. And she got some answers. And she still couldn't connect to her higher self in her sessions. And it just took her practicing on her own. Now she is an incredible, if you want to call it channeler, it's kind of like channeling our higher selves. And yeah, she's very good at it now. So, okay.
I was just nodding, but that's spectacular. Well, Travis, what's your perspective on all of this?
Well,
What do
but
you
see,
have to add?
see what happens. We did two surrogate sessions. One we did with this. She was a younger woman, and I went under. I was her higher self. I was talking to her and telling her everything. I was telling her stuff that I knew about her, and she believed it at some point. But then at some point, when I was talking to her, it almost seemed like her demeanor changed, and she's like, "Can you tell me what's in my pocket?" And her higher self was like, "Do you not know what's in your pocket? Why are you asking me what's in your pocket?" And then she didn't say nothing. She didn't say anything. She just stopped talking. And then her higher self just kept talking and talking, and then went through, and then we finally ended it. And we could tell something wasn't right about this woman. Like we knew she didn't believe it. But see, she gave my wife a lot of questions and stuff, and her higher self was actually giving her the answers to the questions for my wife even asked the questions, and she still didn't believe it. So what do we got to do to make people believe what we're doing here? You know? It's just stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, I've been at this for a while, and my understanding is that proof thing is it has a flavor and an energy, and it's like a flavor or an energy that ruins the soup. Once you start down that road of needing proof, you kind of spoil, I don't know, the trust, the love, the something. It's like side-eyeing, God or something. I don't know. It's just not good. You have to start with the trust, and then all kinds of proof can come your way. But if you do it the opposite way, forget it.
And there's an and. Um, we had it. Well, I think one night I was just thinking about all of it. And I knew that people did surrogate sessions, but I was sort of emotional about the whole thing. And Travis was sleeping, and then suddenly Metatron has come through and started talking to me about the whole thing. And he just said, "You've got to screen your clients." And it's not really this isn't really for that reason. We want people to do this so that they can learn to connect to their higher self, because when they do that, they can always do that. Once you learn how, you can always do that. And so that's they're not going to tell us what to do because we have free will, but that's sort of their preference. And so that's when we just were like, we're not going to do this anymore. We don't feel like that's a good thing. So that's when we stopped. Well, we didn't stop completely. We still do them for my father, for example, has dementia. We have a little parallel going there, Candace. Um, so we've done sessions for him, and then a friend of mine that has Asperger's or autism, and I can't remember, but just in certain circumstances, we do them now.
Sure. And that makes sense, because why do we do this anyway? It's not just for, well, fix my, fill in the blank or whatever, or, it's not just for that. It's so that they can do that themselves, which is why if you go back again to Dolores Cannon in history, her whole thing was, well, they went through it. And if they listen to that recording, they can see what their higher selves are saying. They've made the connection, and they can do that after just one session themselves. Now, caveat there, Dolores ended up in the one session kind of advice thing, which if you think about it, and some people think we do this for money, the majority of almost all of our clients who do this work are one-offs. They just are. They are one-offs. We're not interested in repeat customers. The whole idea is to get you launched and connected in that way. However, it didn't come out that way at first with Dolores. As a matter of fact, herself, when she was first doing this, she would find what she would call a good subject. And her good subjects are very much the people that she connected with to write a great number of her books, that she would have session after session after session after session after session. And some of her UFO books using the fella named Phil. Phil at first just had some humdrum kind of connections. It wasn't until he had developed a rapport doing the work and really trusting himself, trusting Dolores, doing all that, that suddenly he found himself on other planets and talking about aliens and all that stuff that finally came through. If she'd have done one-off sessions with a guy like Phil, we wouldn't have, some of the writings that Dolores has. So her advice sort of changed, especially towards the end. And some of that also had to do with the fact that her waiting list was so long. She didn't want anybody to come back and ask for another session. Nope, one's enough. So that's the history of that there as well.
Well, I know, I don't know. We did a session once, and the angels pretty much said the same thing that Dolores said. Only do it for certain people, do it for people that are not able to, like handicapped people, or even we, maybe children. I know Dolores didn't like doing it for children, but you know, just for people that can't figure out who their higher selves are, but like basically like for normal people they're able to do anything on their own. They say do not do any for them because they should be able to do it if they just relax and just chill out, meditate, just listen. They really just want you to if you can listen, then you will hear them. Of course, the way our society is, if you hear people, they just assume that you're crazy or something. And that's probably why people are scared of it because they don't want to get thrown into a loony bin or something. But it's like it's I'm pretty sure everybody can hear something, but they don't want to be seen as crazy, so they kind of just ignore it. And they probably won't even tell anybody to hear people talking to them because they don't want to be seen as crazy. So it kind of sucks that that happens that way, but they just got to be in a group. If they get around a group of people like us, then they will be able to talk about it. It's usually, I think I did a video. I was out in the Red Rocks and I did a video about a lot of men. I talked to a lot of men because I know there's a lot of men that probably has gifts like this, and they ain't gonna tell nobody. Like they ain't saying nothing. So I did a video for them. I was like, okay, if you have a gift, just get around people like us, and and you can talk about it. You ain't got to tell everybody, but just find people that know about stuff like that, and then you'll be able to get it out of your system and talk about it. And you might be able to find that you might have a good gift to help people. You ain't even got to tell your family. You can keep it to yourself. You ain't got to tell everybody, but if you think you can help people with it, then you can help people with it. Just get around people like us, and we'll help you with it, and we'll help you through it. And if you want to get around to where you kind of want to tell your family, you want to get brave and tell them, then you can. But you ain't necessarily got to tell them right away. Just talk to people like us, and we can help you. And you know, it'll help them get it through. It'll help them get through it, and they won't feel like they're going nuts because they'll see there's a lot of people that are like him out there. Because I know there's a lot of men out there that's not saying anything. When we first started doing this, I was like, man, there's a lot of women doing this, and I didn't hardly see any men. I thought I was the only man for a while until I saw your thing when I think his name was Will, and he was doing a thing with your pets and stuff. I thought it was pretty cool. So it's not that many, It's I don't know.
I think that's why the men, well, I have a theory, Candace, about why there's so many men channelers. I think they have to get walloped with this giant gift so that they've got it and they've got to decide, am I going to do something with this or not? And maybe it just gets them out there. I don't know. I don't know. But it certainly changed everything for us. Uh, yeah, I don't know.
Well, before we press the record button, I was talking about knowing some couples who did this, and
Yeah.
that was before the record button, I think. Anyway,
I think.
yeah, there've been. So I've been around for a long time, since 2008. Very much having my finger on the pulse of what practitioners, what they do, what they talk about with colleagues, what they think privately. All of those things, and I can think of truly many occasions where sometimes pairs of practitioners would pair up and try to offer this service. And again, in the early days, you could think of it as just breaking new ground in this way, and maybe off the track of what Dolores said, but they were excited about it. And I'm sure they had some of the kinds of experiences that you've had, because quite frankly, right now, and I can honestly say this, the only non man woman married couple that are not that description are Donna and Diana, Diana Adair and Donna McMurtry, my good friends and colleagues who are sisters.
Sisters.
Yeah, so there's another kind of bond there, right? And they've been doing this for a long time, and they do some surrogate work as well. And what's really fascinating about that, and then I want to mention Travis said Will. So he's speaking of Will Brown and his wife, Allison, and they do something similar. And Will Brown's a trance channel. And so what I thought was fun is after kind of introducing this subject to the public like we are today, that we're going to bring everyone together in a round table and sort of compare notes, because Will and Allison said, boy, what Sarah said, and they've got some stories that they want to say to share. And then Don and Diana actually have a slightly different perspective. Of course, this is great. It's great to have different perspectives, but they come along the route of confirmation, that they're getting a lot of successful sessions because they do that after somebody's exploring for quite some time, not feeling like maybe the conversation or the information's been authentic. And then Donna and Diana will often have a session that will confirm that indeed, in fact, it was. And that can be priceless for some people. So there's another side of the coin to this, right? But, I should mention too, and maybe this isn't such a fun thing to hear, but most of those practitioners who've teamed up like that are not doing it anymore, are also really not speaking anymore. I mean, it was not, and maybe that's just because we're figuring out our footing, right? Maybe that's just because it's, in the scheme of things, it's still a pretty new concept, but it's something to pay attention to, right?
So did they just find a practitioner friend who was particularly good at bringing in information? Is that what you mean? Yeah,
Yes,
kind of like that.
Yes, it can be, but
yeah,
I gotta throw a little wrench into those works.
In that.
Because, well, here's what I have to say, and I know I talk about this at least briefly in the BQH class, but of all the thousands of people that I've done sessions with, there's a particular interesting presentation of ability to connect. So one is often people can jump into, experience any kind of past life, no problem. They get over to the higher self, nothing. That is common. Here's another one. They go into a session, they don't really need a past life, only the higher self comes in. That's great. Here's another one. They can have a great past life. We get to the higher self. I ask their personal question, nothing happens. Then I do this. I ask a more universal question. All kinds of information comes out. What's that about, right? It's not that they can't kind of connect. It's something about there's some sort of screen or reason, or you can use the word block. I don't like the word block. Why? It gets used too much. And it gets used too much in a pejorative way that just sort of, it's a blanket statement that doesn't always help. I've got a block, and then some people say, I have a block, I'm coming to you, take it away. It's too simplistic. It's a little too, it's not nuanced enough for me after doing all this work for all these years. So that there are some people who really are, maybe it's in their life contract. I don't really, I'm going into this life as a human, and I want to see what I can do just with the conscious mind without too much interference I want to see how that plays out, because, we're limitless beings and we're going to try all of this stuff, right? But you get that same person to talk about cosmic events or humans in general or astrology or off-planet stuff, and suddenly the information flows. Travis is nodding a lot. What have you got to say about all that, Travis?
Yeah, that's exactly what's on my mind. Like, there's some people that might have, like I said, they might have came into this life and they don't want to. They just not really necessarily live simple, but they just want to just roll with the punches. I think that's pretty much how my mom is, because my mom knows that we do this kind of stuff, and she's like, "Oh, okay," but she don't have no interest in it at all. Like, like it's like it's not even there, And her dad which is kind of surprising. Her dad, my wife's dad, is like it's kind of surprising. Like he's interested in this, and I thought he would have been like my mom, like he wouldn't have no interest, but he's interested in it. It's kind of surprising to me, honestly. Like I was like, what? Like really? And he's like, you know, wanting to know stuff. And I like when people want to know. I like when people want to know. I like when people's minds opens up because I know when I was born, I always knew things wasn't right. Like I guess that's why when I was in school, I was so bored in school. I was like, why are we learning this stuff? Like I gotta learn this stuff to get a job, have a family, have some kids, and then just die. That's it. Like that's it's gotta be more. It's gotta be more to life than that. Like it's gotta be. I was just I was like I was, I always believed that everything I don't care what nobody says, but I believe that everything in movies is actually true because I believe they're getting those ideas from somewhere and they're pretty much putting the truth right in front of our faces. I believe in Bigfoot, I believe in aliens, I believe in all that stuff. They're just probably in a different dimension. They pop up every now and then in our dimension, so you'll see them and then they disappear. That's why you don't see them all the time. I knew that stuff when I was a kid for some reason. It was already in my head. Like so I was just different. I didn't tell nobody, of course, because of course if you tell somebody they're gonna think you're
Yep.
nuts. So I kept it to myself. But I was always into stuff like that. Like my whole life, I never really talked to anybody except for my cousin. I have a cousin that's just like me, so me and him are kind of like we talk about this stuff all the time. But he was the only other person I talked to my whole life about stuff like this, and we always knew there's other things out there, and people just if you see them, you see them. If you don't, you don't. But we always believed in them. And I guess maybe that's why I got this gift of trance channeling because I didn't know I could do it until I asked my wife to do it one day because I had a bad dream about us getting killed by some aliens or something. And then I told her, I said, "Will you put me in the under just to see if I could do it?" And she did it. And the angels came out. They said, "Oh, there was actually a parallel life you was living, and you and your wife got killed in that life." And I was like, "What the?"
Wow.
Yeah,
Travis, when did this happen? How many years ago was that?
I think it was God, time goes by so fast. I think it was a couple of years ago. 2000, was it 2022? 2020?
It was before I was a practitioner. Can you
It
believe
might it
that?
might have been 2021. Years go by so fast I can't remember no more. But man, that was when they told me that was wild. I was like, man, I was in a parallel life with my wife and we got killed in that life. And they was like, but don't worry about it. You're dead now in life. That's pretty much what they said.
They made a big joke. You don't have to work because that life's over. You're like, what is happening? And that's when they said, that's, that was like a couple months before I took the course. They encouraged me to take the course, actually. They won't tell you
Wow.
what to do, but they encouraged me to take but that's how it all started, is learning that we had been killed by
This question. I got this
what
question, Travis. So, it
oh my God.
I just actually, Sarah, I don't expect you to have been on the forum already today, but I made a post on the forum just today,
Yeah.
and it was all about I posted a little more backstory about the video that I released that by the time this airs, it will be public on probably both. Well, I don't know if it'll be public on YouTube. It's certainly on Rumble right now. And I call it a source level BQH session, powerful source level BQH session. So I posted that just yesterday to the public on Rumble. And again, it'll be on YouTube eventually, even if not when this thing comes out. I'm not sure. Anyway, the whole reason this woman had a session was she had made this very powerful connection with her higher self in a QHHT session. One of the first questions I asked her she booked a session. She said she'd had sessions before. And so that's my first question. You had a session before? She's like, yeah, it was pretty good. I'm like, well, when did that happen? And at the time, this was 2018 when this actually took place. She said, well, it was just a few weeks ago. And part of me is like, well, wait a second. If you just had a session and it went really well, what are you doing with me? I mean, that's how the whole thing even started. And get this. It actually happens. I think I'm going on a tangent. I'll come back around, Travis. My brain works like that. And anyone who, I'm sorry, you'll have to forgive me, but I'm going to go ahead and finish this one out. So I know what it has to do with. It has to do with aspects and connecting and disconnecting, but we'll get there. So she made this powerful, fantastic connection with her higher self at the end of this session. And at the end of the session, the QHHT practitioner did the standard procedure, which basically is this. Now we're going to put everybody back where they belong. The past life person's going back to that past life or however many, and your higher self's going back to where it was before we did this session. And the higher self and the woman in the session was like, well, wait a second. We had this session so that we could have this more powerful connection. We want to stay connected. And bless her heart, the QHHT practitioner basically says, well, I can't because that's against the rules. There's a lot of ways to look at that, everybody, a lot of different ways. And I won't go down that route except for to say BQH is a lot more flexible. And one of the reasons that this woman came to me was because she was like, I just want to do it again and stay connected. Right. So we did all that and it was very powerful. And anybody, you can go check it out on Rumble. She had such incredible healing, and there's clips, and I actually have a part of this video has her talking and us looking at some of these clips, and her jaw moves through part of it and her body moves through part of it in this rocking manner. But you can actually see it's almost like if somebody's hand was pushing on her doing this, but she's just laying there and she's going, I'm not doing that. And you can actually see almost like indentations in the arm. It's all on video. It's so great. It's so great. And then she's left on her sofa, and the session was so long. The hypnosis portion was like 2.5 hours. And I'm like, I gotta go. And you know what the SC says to me? She's fine. Just click off. I'm like, but I'm not counting her out. We'll take care of that.
Yeah.
The first time I ever did that, I mean, that's a number of years ago. Okay. How am I connecting that to what your wonderful story is? Some of what we do in BQH is, and I teach this in the class, you might connect to an aspect or even a parallel version of yourself who's doing something where communication between the two of you or integration or something about their skills, their talents, their ability to whatever, that can be helpful not only for you, but for them, right? I mean, in their sort of existence. So my question is, did you explore at all this idea of if you had a parallel aspect of yourself who, it sounds like might have been some trauma there at the end, what happened to that trauma? Like, are you handling that? What's going on?
Oh, it went away. Like right after that session, I didn't worry about it anymore. Because luckily, like I said, I was already born with the state that I believed in everything anyway. So it was pretty easy for me to forget about it. When I got the answers for them, they said, okay, there was a parallel life. You died in that life, and that's it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I was fine then,
Let me ask the question another way. So that version of you died a traumatic death. What happened to that trauma?
Oh, like I said, when it was gone.
No, I know for you it did.
Uh-huh.
That version had trauma.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to that trauma?
You mean like in the light after I think killed. We were killed so like that before we could even blink.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just let Travis see me and die, and the cats die, and then he died.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not really much trauma because it was just boom.
That's how I want to go, please.
Space aliens through the window. You're gone. That's it. So I don't think there really was much trauma. I don't think
Isn't it a valid question? I mean, I'm curious about that question. That created an energy of trauma. So
it's like, did they come and torture you? No, they just wiped us out.
Maybe the higher self somehow dissipates it, or do you see what I'm saying? I'm not saying
he was giggling about it, so I think he dissipated it.
That's
because your
hysterical.
higher self was making the jokes.
Yeah, yeah, I see what you mean. Like, because I guess you mean like if it was, I guess it was some other people they had it, they have trauma, like so they have leftover traumas. Like, well, my wife got killed or whatever. But I guess, like I said, I don't, because my wife knows me. Like, when something's over, it's over. And then if it's getting confirmation from them saying, well, that was in another life, so they don't have nothing to do with. I guess it was saying like that was another life, so that necessarily don't have nothing to do with you, which it doesn't, because I'm in this life and that was in another life. It didn't have anything to do with me. I just happened to
Yeah.
see it.
This could get your brain, like Dolores said, twisting around like a pretzel. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it. And kind of how I came to that question, Travis, is right now, and I talk about this a lot, but I know that I have an aspect of myself somewhere in the star system of Orion, and he's big and he's male and he's a warrior, but he's got a big heart. And I get a lot of my courage to stand up to big things from that guy.
Mm.
And when we had a session, and it was 2012 when this session happened, he now connected to me because we have these completely different aspects of each other. Obviously, it's not a parallel life thing, but when he needs to have support in his compassion and his motherly instinct, he connects to me, which I just find fascinating. When I have to do something that seems a little scary, that dude's right behind me, and he's
Ah,
big and he's there, and I know that that's me. And or
mm.
an aspect of me, he's absolutely for sure got my back. I mean, he's right back there.
They've
Yeah, I see
talked
what
to
you
us
mean.
about that. They've talked to us about that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I see what
And
you mean because I actually do. I actually do have another pair of life. I'm actually an alien on a ship. Just working. I do have another pair of life as an alien on a ship, and I see what you mean. He probably helps me sometimes with things because sometimes I just know stuff. Like if somebody tells me something, I'll say, well, just do it this way. Don't worry about how it's gonna turn out. Just do it. And it. I don't know. I'm probably getting answers from him that way because sometimes I just know stuff. I don't know how. I just do. You know.
yeah,
I don't. I really can't
I,
explain it. I mean, I'm
I
not
think
like a
this
genius.
is one of the ways we're multidimensional, don't you? I mean, how about you, Sarah? Do you have an aspect that you know about?
Oh, yes. In fact, I talk to them at night and they talk to me at night. I can hear the conversation going back and forth. And so I asked the angels about this and they were like, "Yeah, you share information with them. And by the way, the people you see in your dreams, those are real people and they see you too. And yeah, you do share information. Those are usually your other lives. Sometimes there are other people that you work with, but
Mm.
but yeah, I have a segment past life, and she's my I need some serious, mm. So I call on her. I do the same thing that you do. Yeah, I call on that for my strength. But I can hear us talking back and forth, and that's when I was like, what? Who am I talking to? What are we? I hear the information going out and I hear it coming in. What is that? And they were like, yeah, you're sharing information with your other aspects of you and the other people. I had she's another BQH practitioner who I saw one night. This is hilarious to me. In my dream state, she was a purple squid being. And it was nothing was weird to me for some reason. I just knew that it was her. And I was like listening to this information she was sharing with me. And I was like, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Okay, got it. Great. Yeah,
That's because you can read the energy signature. We're going to be able to, we're going to be
I
able
got
to do
nothing.
that.
Like in my waking state, I'm like, that is the craziest thing. That's the craziest thing. But I love to ask questions about those things because I'm like, what was that? So they're like, yeah, that was your friend. You're just sharing information. You guys have been working together for many years or many lifetimes, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny how the information comes through because when I start channeling, I actually asked the angel, I said, okay, when I channel, I want to channel the way everybody can understand it. Even if it's a 5-year old, I want to channel because when most people channel, they channel the way they speak. They say all this, they speak kind of like all this cosmic stuff. And nobody at 5 years old is gonna understand what you're talking about. I said I want to channel where I basically just speak like a regular person. I can speak where people can understand exactly what I'm talking about. Like I said, okay, if the light does this, I want to be simple. Like the light does this. I don't want to say the light goes through this cosmic wave like and start speaking. So I don't want to speak like that. I want to speak normal where they can actually understand what I'm talking about. And that's the way they come through. They speak normal, like I'm talking to you, like so you can actually understand what I'm talking about. Like you're gonna walk through a portal, you're just gonna walk through the portal. You're not gonna say, you know, listen to the cosmic wave and what are you talking about? Do you want me to walk through the portal? Yes. Well, just say that then. Like it's like, it's like when I channel, I
Yeah, yeah.
just channel like they speak like normal so people can understand exactly what what the message is. So
That makes me think of Dolores. I think, didn't you say that Dolores used just regular words or something like that?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, she
Yeah.
did. She actually
Yeah.
said something to me. Oh gosh, I wrote it down on that piece of paper over there. But I think it was, oh, she said, when you look, when you look backwards, you stop your forward motion. Isn't that fantastic? She just said that to me the other day. That's so brilliantly Dolores. Boom. The fewest amount of words, the biggest idea put forward. It just encompasses so much. If you want to keep moving forward, stop looking backwards. But she condensed it to
That
those
is
words.
that is perfect, actually. And it's what we are always told.
Yep.
It's so true.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's true.
Y'all, I have to go to the bathroom. I'm so sorry.
Well, you
I
know
gotta,
what?
I
We were
gotta,
going to keep this short anyway, unless
that's true.
there's something else that you need to go. We're going to connect again in the
Thanks.
roundtable, all about surrogate sessions. Again, we're going to bring other
Okay.
pairs of practitioners who do this work. So will you join us again for that roundtable?
Yes,
All
I'd
right.
love to. Was that good? Was that what
This
did
was
we give
great.
you what you wanted? Okay,
This
good.
is super, this is super great. But before
Good,
we
good,
cut
good.
off, why don't you tell everyone where they can find you besides, of course, the quantumhealers.com directory? Where can other people find you on your own website?
My website, excuse me, is Sarah with an H dash web.com. And then if you want to find all of our our podcast, our YouTube page, just all of our social media, I don't even know what's on there. Just go to www.beyondquantumhealer.com and that's got all of our links, our bio, basically.
Super,
So,
super. And I don't think I've ever said this to you, but congratulations on snagging that URL. I didn't even think about it.
right? I know. I was like, whoop,
I can't believe it was available, and yet
I
there
know.
it
I don't
was.
know. Yep,
All
there it
right.
was.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah and Travis.
Thank
It's been a
you,
pleasure.
Candace.
All
All
right.
right.
So if you are a healer of any kind, would you come join us in our community? We would love to have you. We're guru free. That means we don't tell anyone what to do. We share information horizontally. We're a loving community, very open minded. And if you're interested in learning about quantum healing, both in BQH or maybe my new version, Quantum Connect, and there's more classes coming, head on over to quantumhealers.com. Until next time, see you then. Bye. Bye, everybody.